A transformative leader is a person that values recognition, respect for all individuals in order to create a world that is socially just, equitable, and democratic. They achieve this by espousing the Freirean dialogue elements, namely humility, faith, hope, critical thinking, and solidarity, to transform academic performance and achieve social impact with the educational institution stakeholders. This research project aimed to identify a transformative educational leader, Claire Jackson Bernardo, that affected academic and social change within Boston Media House Sandton. A qualitative data collection method and in-depth interview was used, guided by a questionnaire supported by literature on a transformative leadership and social justice. The interview audio recording was used to sketch a narrative about the respondents' transformative leadership. The institution is plagued by misperceptions of their students as superficial and that the students attract a negative image through the community of Parkmore. In the video, 3 interventions are depicted that was undertaken by Claire to address these challenges, through her interventions and guidance for students at Boston Media House to become social, critical, active students. Qualitative research approach was utilized for the study, which allows for rich and detailed information about the transformative educational leader and their various interventions at Boston. One form of qualitative research that captures an understanding of human behavior's complexities is in-depth interviews, Newman 2000. Claire was the best candidate to invite for the interview, based on the researcher's understanding of the research project scope, a familiarity with the interviewee and her initiatives, and familiarity with the literature regarding transformative leaders and the Freirean dialogue. An in-depth interview with a semi-structured questionnaire was developed based on the literature. The researcher interviewed Claire on Wednesday, 23 September at 11:30 virtually through MS Teams. During the interview, an audio and visual recording was made by utilizing the functionality of MS Teams to capture Claire's response, who had also given consent to conduct and record the interview for this research project. Claire has been in the media industry for over 25 years. She first completed a secretarial course, then a course in public relations, before obtaining her communications degree from RAL. Claire has worked as a producer, scriptwriter, and director in the television industry. She then spent 5 years heading up the publicity department at Ster-Kinekor before starting her own company, Alerting the Media, a boutique communications and public relations consultancy focusing on lifestyle and entertainment PR. She decided that she did not want to be a bystander anymore, but wants to play a role in building the future of South Africa. Claire has lectured public relations for 11 years at Boston Media House.
That my career and my lecturing have now combined together to become a hobby, a passion, a life. Every moment of my life is combined with both those things. And that's probably, if I look back, as one of my highlights, is the day that I stood in front of a group of young people and realized the power that I had to kind of make change and to be involved in change.
Boston Media House is a privately owned provider of higher education and training located in South Africa. It was established in 2002 to provide occupationally relevant education. There are free delivery sites in Sandton, Pretoria, and Durban. Boston Media House Sandton is situated in the suburb of Parkmore with enormous disparity.
For me, it is an energy-filled creative media house, and energy in terms of the students and energy in terms of the lecturers and the staff and the passion that everyone has. Students also come from many walks of life, which is one of the things that I love about Boston, is you can meet cultures and students and people from all different walks of life. And I think the most important thing, which kind of drives the energy behind Boston Media House, is that it is filled with passionate educators. So everyone there has a very similar feel in terms of their passion for what they're doing.
The image of Boston is one more concerned with material and superficial concerns while ignoring the stark realities of its students, community and country. It has received massive critique from the Parkmore community as predominantly young black people moving into the community, which to their minds has led to more informal shops being opened, taxis driving, drug dealers. There's also been a surge in crime statistics. The Parkmore residents do not view Boston Media House and their students to bring positive contributions and image to the community.
So before I start, I think it's quite important that I just say that I grew up in a very privileged background, and that has been something of a guiding force to me, is that my parents made me very aware that I was privileged and that I had anything when it came to education or anything that I wanted at my fingertips. And I think that has kind of shaped me who I am, that I have been very aware of the fact that I've been privileged. So privileged in terms of the fact that I did a
Claire recognizes the community's material realities outside her life, the first step towards freedom and leadership, also recognizing that the playing field for rich and poor students is unequal. Archambault and Garon, 2013, Miller, Brown and Hobson, 2011, Shields, 2010. She is thereby illustrating Bronfenbrenner's social ecology theory that students' development and achievements are assisted or hindered by the complex interplay between their immediate and larger environments. Bronfenbrenner, 2013. Claire says that you cannot deny the influence of politics, economics and social cultural events on students' lives. It was one of her mentors, Warren Buffett, that said, "When you are born, you have no choice to whom you are born to and where you are born, and those two things play a part in the rest of your life. If you are born in squalor, the chances of you getting out of squalor are slim. If you are born to parents who have no money, you have no ambition, you have no goals, and the chances of you breaking free are very slim." She engages in proactive, courageous discussions with her students, humbly, openly and ready to listen about who they are and the challenges they are faced with. Hobson, 2014, Miller et al. 2011. Thereby starting the process of developing what Freire, 1970, refers to as critical conscientiation, engaging in educative practices that incorporated the theory of public relations with action and reflection to achieve social change and justice. Brunin, 2016. As a culturally responsive educator, she has the courage and willpower to discuss uncomfortable topics while accepting her own discomfort. Dodge and Van Wyk, 2014. She encourages the students to discuss any topic as long as it's respectfully and professionally, echoing humility as a Freirean dialogue element. Miller et al. 2011. Claire uses storytelling as an insightful tool and asset for more significant teaching and learning in her class, to understand her students and allow other students to understand each other's indigenous context. Guardo and Casa Perrata, 2008, Soto, 2014.
I see that you are a young black South African. I see that you are a coloured South African. And by seeing who you are and by saying to them, I see you, I'm acknowledging their heritage. I'm acknowledging the struggles that they have had. I'm not putting them all in a box. And so by telling everyone in class that we are all different and we should be proud of how different we are. If you are a proud Zulu man, then be a proud Zulu man. I recognize you and I see you for who you are.
She attempts to create a safe space as much as possible in a classroom for such discussions, while still recognizing that rarely such discussions will remain rational. Ellsworth, 1989. Claire recognizes that the classroom is not a safe space for all.
Alright, so for me, I was fortunate enough to be brought up in an environment where my parents and I would sit at the dinner table with my brother, and my dad would throw a topic out there and say, what do you think? And for me, that was very much forming my kind of ability to be able to speak in public and to stand up for what I believe and to have an opinion. So I brought that into my classroom, and I introduced all new groups by saying that no topic is taboo in my classroom. There is no xenophobia, there's no bigotry. still have valuable opinions and valuable discussion points. So the key is to then be available afterwards, and that's also where I find dialogue just flows, is where students come and say, I love this discussion, I can't believe this person has that opinion.
Claire believes strongly in students finding and using their voices to recognize the power that lies in their voices, thereby echoing Giroux 1998 and confirming that she provides an active voice to students in their academic journey as a transformative intellectual leader. She encourages and finds mechanisms for students to engage politically to change their world to be more socially just, calling for political engagement. Miller et al. 2011. Thereby acknowledging Fraser's three-dimensional model for understanding and approaching justice matters, where political issues are not distinct from student struggles in achieving an equitable life. Kitty, 2012.
So for me, as an educator, and I'm looking at purely as an educator, I look at it as a way to get students to find their voices, to get them to use their voices and to see that the power they actually have if they talk.
She challenges her students to identify social problems within their community, guide them and be guided by them to find potential solutions to these problems. Miller et al. 2011. As a result of this, she employs Freire's 1970 problem-posing education in a classroom as a practice of freedom grounded by dialogical praxis. Dada 2018. She does so as she firmly believes that the students can use their contextual expertise to center their advocacy for social transformation far better than she or their parents can do, thereby demonstrating humility, faith, and critical thinking elements of the Freirean dialogue. Miller et al. 2011. Here, Claire's transformative leadership is focused on a cultural, sensitive, and locally based approach, recognizing the individual's experiences, identity, and power relations. 2005.
I think one of the best examples is, for 3 or 4 years, students approached me and said, why does the Gautrain not have student discounts? And for 3 or 4 years, I kept saying to students, why aren't you asking them? Why aren't you asking them? And then one year, we decided to ask them. And although the results were incredibly negative, the learnings were so positive that students learned that by going onto social media and by asking for change, by being honest about change that they wanted in an organization, they ended up with the head of the communications department coming and sitting with them. The discussion went pear-shaped, and we all know how it did, but it showed students that if there is something that you are passionate about, you've got to be able to do something about it. And so for me, when it comes to social justice, it's about doing it. It's about you have a voice. Don't be scared to use it. Don't be scared to talk out loud. The whole theme of looking out for opportunities for my students all the time. I got an opportunity to sit with him in the Mashaba when he was running for DA, Mayor of Gauteng. And after we had this great discussion, and afterwards I said to him, how do you feel about talking to young South Africans who are traditionally not going to vote for you because they don't know who you are? But would you be open to a discussion about how you got to be here in Mashaba and how you got to where you are now? And he was obviously very open to it. He paid for a series of breakfasts for my students. And the great part for me is that he challenged their perceptions. He challenged what they think about being a contributing member of South African society as a young South African. And so for me, that's kind of how I bring politics into a classroom. It's not about what your political party is. It's about what your process is, and it's about researching all of the parties and everybody and getting involved that way.
As a transformative leader, Claire has used the public relations-free corporate social investment CSI project as a transformative project with ameliorative intentions, Salter 2014. Here the final year students are responsible for devising, crafting and executing a CSI project on behalf of our institution. They are collectively responsible for choosing the non-profit organization, NGO, that would benefit from this project based on their community. It places the voices of students and leaders of an NGO with the community in conversation to understand better issues of activism and social justice that can be served through community initiatives connecting students and NGOs.
So over the years, we have donated over 5 about vegetables. So why do you water them? Why do you plant them this way? The different uses for the vegetables. How to be clean and healthy. Why vitamins are so important. So it wasn't just we rocked up at a school and planted vegetables and walked out and said goodbye. It was an entire day of learning and about planting the seeds in young people, literally and figuratively, about growing and looking after your body and your health and your mindset. We've delivered students have collected toiletries that they took to an old age home, and for many of them, they kind of didn't realize what happens to people when you're old, and spending a day in an old age home completely changed their mindset, because they saw firsthand how old people are just left by society, and so that had a huge impact on them. Another student in our part-time group was completely blown away by the Door of Hope, which is an organization where you can take a baby that you don't want and you just pop it in a door in a little room, and then the health workers come and take that baby and they arrange for adoption and there's no questions asked. And my one part-time student, this has become his lifetime passion now, is making sure that Doors of Hope have nappies and bottles for these babies because they still have a future. So I think the key part with the CSR campaign and why I would so strongly advocate always doing it is that it lets you focus on something other than you, but also in the cold, hard world, when you work at someone for the first time in a PR agency, they always give you their pro bono work. So, and their pro bono work is their charity work. So it serves a dual purpose in that you know how to do it, you know how difficult it is, but that you've also opened your mind and you've got a little bit of empathy moving forward into the big wide world.
In this project, Claire's displaying freer in dialogue elements of humility and solidarity, where she acknowledges that her students might be better equipped to provide the answers and that they are ready to work together in unity to find the solutions. Miller et al. 2011. As part of the project, they also have to engage the rest of the institution's community through education and fundraising initiatives for the NGO. This also highlights the importance of building and maintaining relationships with various individuals, a feature of critical feminist pedagogy, Webb and Allen 2002.
And I think the most important thing is our surrounding stakeholders in our community are very much involved in all our CSI campaigns. And I think that's helped build relationships with the community. You know, oftentimes people see young people walking around, going to campus, and there's all the misconceptions about drugs and students not caring. And then all of a sudden, a group of students come to a business and say, this is what we're working on. So it's helped change mindsets and it's helped to build greater community relations, which I really enjoy. One campaign that sticks out for me on how it completely changed students' mindsets was the campaign that we did for the Guide Dog Association. So traditionally, dogs are scary. Traditionally, dogs are there to protect property. Traditionally, within the black youth, dogs are associated with policemen, and they hear stories under apartheid with barking dogs and the police and all of that. So dogs come with quite a bad rap. And this year, the students decided to raise money to buy two guide dogs, to give two guide dogs to blind South Africans. And to me, seeing these young kids sitting down with the puppies and seeing how the dogs were there to help blind people that came through was just absolutely amazing. One student had never ever met a blind person before, and eventually she was the one guiding the guide dog and the blind person that came to the event around campus, giving them a tour. And afterwards she said to me, "Ma'am, I never knew how powerful words were until I realized that that's the only way I could communicate with this gentleman." So I think those tiny little things are the things that make such a difference, and why I believe letting students do physical things within the ambit of theory is so important. Every student that you touch is an achievement. So if I look back over the years, I had a girl who was pregnant in third year, and she had a baby in third year, and she still graduated top of her class. To me, that's an achievement, and that's something I was part of. I've had a kid who sent a business proposal to me that was one of the best business proposals I've ever read, and I gave him the contacts to go and get it, and he's opened that business. That's an achievement. The student who came out to her parents and has been living for 2 years being gay and sat with me every day talking about how she could come out to her parents, and then skipping into class one day and saying, "Ma'am, I did it."
And of course, Claire, she provided me with the framework in which I built my entire career upon within PR, and the amount of knowledge and support that she's given to me, I cannot value that at all.
There's numerous stories of a student's varied successes, whether it's a student who's the first to graduate in their family, starting their own business, evidencing the hope as an element of the Freirean dialogue in her practices, Miller et al. 2011. Claire advocates for dialogical love in a class where she listens humbly, with faith, in solidarity with her students, while promoting critical thinking amongst the students and as a hope that they can achieve better possibilities.